Good evening, my dear friends. Thank you so much for joining me for Last Days Live. I am very, very thankful. I appreciate you so much. We got something really, really important to talk about this evening. And I guess I could just go ahead and show you that slide, the frame that you saw on Facebook. Those of you who are paying attention when I advertised it. We need to talk about this Supreme Court, the nomination of this potential Supreme Court justice, and what she is about to go through. Her name is Amy Coney Barrett, and she brings to the table some exciting things as far as the future of our country is concerned, especially with regards to the treasuring of life. And she's a strong Catholic, I'm told. She has, I believe, 7 children of her own. At least 2 of them were adopted, I believe, from Haiti. She's got a special needs child, etc. She is showing the great polarization in our nation between positions with regards to how we treasure life. On the Democratic side, they treasure life as long as it belongs to the mother, adult, somebody who's already been born, and yet that's not even true any longer because they are even fighting now and supporting. I'm told that Biden and his running mate even support the killing of a child should they exit the womb still alive after a botched abortion. And so we've got this great separation, this great gulf that is between them. On one side, you've got abortion. On the other side, you've got adoption. And she is going to expose, I think, she is going to expose to the world, and specifically, I hope, us as Americans, just how barbaric the Democratic side has become. Now, I want to make a prediction. I'm not a prophet, and God hasn't given me any vision, that kind of a thing, so I'm not claiming that. But just from common sense and from my own prayer time and things that I have been engaged in over the last several years and watching current events, etc., I'm going to make this prediction. And that is that if President Trump is given 4 more years in the White House, that it will be a stormy 4 years that he has. I believe that, I mean, you think about it, if they're acting like third graders now, that is the liberal left, what's going to happen should he be elected in November? But I think that should he get 4 more years, that is going to, they're going to salivate, they are going to ferment their hatred towards the conservative right to such a degree that I think that after those 4 years, it's going to be tough, if not impossible, for us to have a fair election, and even if it were a fair election, for us to ever regain conservative ground here in America, unless we seek the blessing of God. If my people are called by my name, we've got to return to those ancient words of how to have the blessing of God. And one of the quickest ways to lose the blessing of God is for us to continue to massacre the unborn, those who are innocent. There are 7 things the Lord hates, and smack dab in the middle of it is hands that shed innocent blood. And if there's anything that does that in our culture today, it is abortion. Many of you were with me last week, and we talked about the grand Jezebel of our culture, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and how she has been honored, and all of the stuff that has gone on with regards to her, even though she's got such blood on her hands, etc. Well, if President Trump is granted 4 more years, it'll only be by the grace of God. But if it is by the grace of God, then I think you and I can count on the fact that God is saying to America, you got 4 years to get your house in order. You got 4 years to revive. You got 4 years to do what I have been asking of you in this past year with COVID-19, etc. I have been asking of you, but are you going to sit up straight, or are you going to pay attention? Are you going to do anything with us? If by the grace of God we get 4 more years with a conservative in the White House, then I believe that it is very, very important. And by the way, this particular broadcast will spend a lot of time during those 4 years talking about how you and I can prepare for the onslaught of horrible liberalism that's going to come about in our nation. However, if we do repent, if we're granted 4 more years, it is also likely, it is also possible that during those 4 years, much like in the cycle of the judges, that some of us will actually wake up and will pay attention and will begin making some generational changes, and possibly this whole thing can be turned around. I'm not a cynic to the degree that I feel like that America's lost and gone forever if we repent. But I was arguing with a guy today, and he claims to be a Christian, but he has very liberal positions with regards to abortion, homosexuality, and all of those kind of things. And I was arguing, and he just right out said, he said, well, I'm a Christian too. And as we were talking online with regards to the subject matter of being a Christian, I suggested to him this, in a strong manner I suggested it to him, that there's a real hypocrisy in calling yourself a Christian and then running down the path of liberal agendas that are anything but Christian. How can a Christian support the homosexual agenda when we've read Romans chapter 1? How can we support ongoing child sacrifice when we know that God says there's 7 things he hates, and in the middle of that is the shedding of innocent blood? How can we support the introduction of more information about Islam into our public school system, which Biden clearly wants to have happen, when we know that they worship a false God? And if there's one thing that riles God up more than anything else, it is when his people, his created beings, worship a false God. My point is, stop calling yourself a godly person or a Christian. Stop doing that. If you're going to chase after these liberal agendas, if you're going to, out of one side of your mouth, say, I'm a Christian, when it is to your advantage, and out of the other side of your mouth, you're going to be doing everything possible to verbalize your support for those things that are anything but godly. We have developed a setting within the church where individuals have been lulled to sleep to the point that they really have trusted in this idea of the separation of church and state, which, by the way, is a bipolar approach to your value system. The idea that on Sundays I'm a Christian, the rest of the week I'm a liberal politician or whatever it may be, there's a real psychological disconnect there, okay? You either are in the boat with Christianity and God's morals and you are honoring the Creator, or you're not. And when an individual tries to play the game on both sides, God says, not with me. Hypocrisy such as that will not ride in my boat. And so I'm convinced that we as the church have allowed this kind of hypocrisy to ferment within our own numbers, the complacency that has gone on, the contentment to just make sure I show up once or twice a week in the sacred cathedral, and therefore I must have done my duty. Now I can go off and I can vote for whoever I want. I can support liberal agendas such as feminism, etc., etc., etc. And then on top of that, you've got all of these just be happy preachers who are filling our pulpits, who have no spine, they have no backbone, they have no desire to actually deal with the hard topics. And so what they do is they get in there and they just caress our consciences and they say, well, it's just good that you showed up this morning. And by the grace of God, everything is going to work out and everything is going to be fine. You don't have to worry about that, because after all, the Lord is still on his throne. How many times have you heard that kind of stuff that's come out of their face? None of which I disagree with, except for the context in which they're placing it. They place it in such a fashion that it's almost to say that we don't need to do anything. Our job is just to sit back and watch God work. What you and I need to do is go about the community making friends with whoever those friends happen to be, and we need to just, tone it down. How many times have I heard that in my ministry? And allow things to happen around about us. It's simply not the path Jesus took. Every time you turn the page in the Gospels, you're finding Jesus in the midst of some kind of a controversy, because he stood for truth, and when he stood for truth, he recognized that people were going to push back, and at the end, it got him killed. And yet, you call yourself a Christian? Then why not go Christ's route? Why not be like Christ was when he was here on the planet, and what he asked of us to do as we represent him now that he has gone back to the Father? All right, here's where we're going tonight. Liberal women's groups, Planned Parenthood, etc., they're ripping on Amy Barrett and suggesting that she's going to turn back the clock on equality and progress, etc. But I need to ask you, and I need you to look in my face when you hear, can anybody honestly say that my lifetime, I'm tapping on 58, in 58 years that I've been alive, can anybody honestly say that America has made great strides? We are getting so much better. Everything is getting so, because now we get to abort our children. And now homosexuals get to marry and they get to adopt children so they'll continue in their lifestyle. And now we've got Islam that has been introduced. And so we're such a better country because all these, can anybody in their right rational mind suggest to me with any legitimacy, any evidence that America is getting better? Anybody? Well, then maybe we ought to consider the fact that what's happening here is not turning back the clock in a negative sense, but turning back the clock in a positive sense. I believe that it's the Bible that actually tells us that we ought to look to the ancient paths, and maybe it's time for some of us in the church to grow a backbone and do just that. You notice the picture in the top right-hand corner. I posted that earlier today. The deep pocket dogs of the Democrats are being unleashed on this woman, and we need to be in prayer for her. So, what I'd like to do, as I promised you, is I would like to ask you to pray with me for just a moment. And if any of you would like to actually post the prayer, type it out there, and the prayer that you have been offering on behalf of this woman and the conditions of our country, I'd love for you to do that at this time. But what I want you to do right now is bow your heads, and we're going to, for the next several weeks, we are going to try to introduce every Monday night with a prayer for this woman and for our country. So let's pray. Father, I pray in a fervent way that you will interact with our culture. I pray, Father, that you will not back off. If we need more COVID-19, then, dear God, I pray that you'll bring it to us so that for the sake of the souls of the masses, that they will come to know you before they go into a lake of fire. Dear God, this woman is going to go through some hellish conditions in the next several weeks, and I'm praying for her and her family. You know that I don't agree with a lot of what she stands for as far as her faith is concerned, her religion is concerned. I believe that Catholicism is one of the great cancers that we have in our country today with regards to some of the religious perspectives that they have. But one thing I do appreciate about this woman, dear God, is that she takes a conservative stance with regards to family and with regards to the life of the unborn. And so, Father, I am praying because of that you will do everything possible to shield her for at least these particular reasons so that she can go to the bench and perhaps be the one who leads us down the path of reversing Roe v. Wade. Dear God, we need a revival in our nation, and I pray that you will bring that about. And whatever it costs, whatever it takes, in order for you to bring that about, I pray that we will be content in seeing you work. Father, I pray for Amy Barrett. I pray that you will bless, and I pray that her confirmation can come quickly if it's within your will. In Jesus' name, amen. Again, throughout the rest of the time that we have together, if somebody would like to just type in the prayer that they have for America or the prayer for Amy Barrett, I would be thrilled for you to do that. While you're considering that and we're talking about this particular subject matter, I want you to notice the picture in the bottom right. I hadn't shown you that one yet, unless you've had your eyes open during the prayer, and you should not have. Trump, Supreme Court pick. Amy Coney Barrett faces white colonizer attacks. Other criticism from the left and media. I knew that they would just sink to an all new low, but and this is just the beginning. But it just really gags me to see where the Democrats are willing to go and the way that they will dehumanize anybody for their own purposes. Before I go to that little meme and talk about it, they are all about women's rights, as long as the woman is agreeing with whatever they think needs to be said or talked about. You know what I'm saying? The hypocrisy on the liberal left is just so rank. And as you see that play out, you begin to ask yourself, why would a person, even if you agree with some of the positions on the liberal left, you got to see yourself in a position where you could easily be stabbed in the back, because just the moment you disagree on one of their little nuances, you're going to be thrown out as well. Here's a woman, here's a Catholic. By the way, Joe Biden is supposed to be a good Catholic as well, and yet she's the one who's going to be crucified. Here is a Catholic, here is a woman, and both of those things you would think the liberal left could appreciate, and yet they're doing everything that they can to just, and the process hasn't even already got started yet, but they're doing everything that they can to discredit her. A white colonizer. I was researching what in the world that even means. A white colonizer, according to their perspective with regards to her, is somebody who adopts, they would say, black children. I try not to use those kind of qualifiers, and I'll tell you why. How black do you have to be black? Do you ever think about that? How white do I have to be white? It's really kind of a nonsensical. The whole idea of racism, there's only one race. It's called human. Okay, now we do have different skin tones. I get that. Okay, and we also have different cultural backgrounds. I get that. So if you want to talk about prejudice, that's one thing. But drop this whole lame line of racism, because it just simply isn't true. It's a made up term, a made up classification that does not exist. And those of you, by the way, who call yourselves Christians and you're still talking in those terms, as you say that, you're undermining the power of creation, because God only created one race. And since God only created one race, when you talk about multiple races, you're suggesting that God didn't do the creation. Think about that. Now, back to what our topic is. This white colonizer or colonization kind of a concept is that they would adopt children who have a darker skin tone, and then they would incorporate them into the white skin tone approach to life and do their best in the process to make sure that they divorce them from all of their heritage and all of the things that have taken place in their past, etc., etc. And I'm not suggesting that that can't happen, but I really struggle with their opening volley being this, when they're talking about a woman who didn't have to. She got 7 kids. She didn't have to adopt 2 from Haiti. And she's got one with special needs. What are they going to do now? How are they going to talk about special needs parents? Think about it. The Democrats have lost, not only have they lost their moral compass, they have lost their credibility as far as humanity is concerned. And this woman is now being accused of being a white colonizer because she was willing to adopt 2 children who have darker skin tone, bring them out of a third world country, and give them the advantages of America. Can you imagine the gall of this woman? And yet that's what Democrats are opening with. And believe me, it's going to get worse as we go down the trail. I'm really interested to see how they're going to take care of this special needs thing. I mean, you think about the way they do. I mean, they're just cruel. They're just cruel. They're insanely cruel. How are they going to deal with a parent who has a special needs child? What are they going to say? I mean, I suppose Amy Barrett, she's evidently, you know what? She probably had this child or brought this. I'm not sure if this particular child is adopted or not, but this child is probably in the family just so that she can have a picture moment, a photo moment, so that she can get on the Supreme Court. That's what they're going to say. They're going to talk that way. It's because they have no credibility. They have no morality left on the liberal left. And we have got to oppose this. Please, I ask of you, as you'll see over the next few weeks, we're going to open up with a screen such as this, talking about how we need to be praying for this woman. I pray that you will pray for her on Monday nights, but please, more than that, pray for her regularly throughout the week and pray for our country because we are a sick people. As I was perusing the internet, social media, and that kind of thing over the last couple of days, I saw a couple of these memes that I just wanted to share with you. The one on the bottom left you've already seen. I put that one together. But the one on the top left, my good friend Henry Burden, he shared this with us, shared it on Facebook, and I decided I'd grab it because I don't think he made it up, but it really is a good one. And it's sobering, and I think he's right. I don't think many of you realize it yet, but November through January is going to be one of the most dangerous times that any of us have ever experienced in our lifetime in the United States. Brace yourselves. And I think he's probably right. And the reason for that is this. I am convinced that if Biden wins in November, that they will immediately begin the liberal agenda that is going to start outlawing things that you and I can do, such as preachers such as myself speaking out bluntly as far as the perversion of homosexuality. He's going to immediately start curtailing free speech in that particular area. Abortion and the right to abortion, the opportunity for abortion is going to be expanded. The bloodiness of our country is going to be expanded, etc. It's just going to be a horrible, liberal, socialistic quagmire that we're going to see if Biden is elected. What I think is more likely, and I am praying every day is going to happen, is that President Trump will be elected. Friends, if they've acted like third graders for the last 4 years, waiting for this moment, and they're turned away again, they're going to take a third grade mentality and they're going to apply it to our culture with adult tactics. And you think that Portland and other places like that are on fire right now with all of the entitlement spoiled brats that are raging around our country? You think it's bad now. If President Trump wins in November, I think that you and I are going to have to hunker down because I think that there is going to be violence in our streets and it could be very, very horrible. So I believe what my buddy Henry posted is true, and that is that I think it's very possible that the next several months could be some of the most dangerous months you've ever lived through in the old United States of America. Just today, top right-hand corner, Pelosi is urging her fellow Democrats to shore up support in case Congress must decide the election. They're doing everything from every direction to position themselves well so that they can not only challenge what's coming. Remember, it's Nancy Pelosi who told Biden, don't you under any circumstances accept the election results on election night. No, I take that back. That was Clinton, wasn't it, that actually said that. And now we got Pelosi, two of the most powerful perverted women in our country, who are making these statements, undermining the credibility of what could be. And when you see what she's saying here and you recognize what's taking place here, you understand what the first meme is talking about, in that it could be very, very, very dangerous. I think that one of the things that, as I said last week, that's very important about us making sure we get a ninth Supreme Court justice on the court is because of what could happen with regards to this year's election. Now, I'm praying, and I'm praying fervently, that God will just by a landslide humiliate the left and humiliate Biden so they don't even have an argument. I'd like for us to gain back the House and the Senate, and for the next 2 years at least, that President Trump can go big guns and really make some impact.
Amen.
But as you consider what is potential here, I want you to also recognize one thing that I didn't mention in the last frame that I should have, and that is this. If there's no other... Somebody who's very dear to my heart said recently they're not going to vote this election season because they just don't feel like there's a good candidate on either side. I need you to understand, I recognize that President Trump is not a godly man. But as my father likes to say, he might not be a godly man, but I believe he is God's man. And I believe that is true because much like Nebuchadnezzar, who wasn't a godly man either, Nebuchadnezzar was in a position where he at least appreciated the fact that there was godly people, people who had a God of their own that was in his kingdom, and he wanted to take care of them. Now, eventually Nebuchadnezzar gets a rude awakening, and I hope that Bill Clinton does too, but I hope that President Clinton, God forgive me, may we never go back there again. I hope that President Trump will also have a rude awakening because he's not a godly man in a lot of ways. Okay, he's got a horrible, tainted, perverted past, and you can't deny that. But if there's one thing you need to consider, maybe as much as anything, it is this. Because of this man, forget the economy. He did marvelous things in that economy, and he will rebuild the economy if we give him a chance as far as COVID-19 that destroyed it all. Forget the economy, though. I'm not talking the economy. What I want you to consider is what he is able to do with regards to Supreme Court nominees. This man, who I believe God has his hand on his shoulder, this man has the potential in the next 4 years to select several more, maybe 2 or 3 others who could die, whatever. And we got God working here. God could arrange it that President Trump nominates the entire bench. And everybody is new. God can do that kind of a thing. But you know as well as I do that if Biden is in that position, he's already made it clear what's going to happen. And it doesn't have anything to do with regards to godliness and morality. And so if there's no other reason than this one to make sure that you vote for President Trump, it is simply this. He has the ability to put forth individuals like Amy Barrett who could literally upend the Roe v. Wade and curtail the horrible, massive, bloody hands that we have had for all of these years that's taking place with regards to the unborn. And so, if for no other reason than that, but consider also, if you will, the long-term effects of who is put on the bench. That's huge. God forbid, but let's just say that President Trump is elected in November and in December he's assassinated. And that's not too far afield because I'm telling you what, they hate him with a visceral hate, okay? Let's just say that happens. Let's just say that because of that, the government is thrown into turmoil, whatever it may be. If we can have conservatives on the bench of the highest court in the land, at the very least, if 4 years from now, or if in November we get a liberal like Biden, at the very least, the bench can hold back for a while at least, can stem the tide of liberality as far as going down the path of socialism and horrible, heinous things that could take place. If we can have the legal system in place that is necessary. And you consider what's happening with all of our cities on fire and all the lack of law-abiding citizens right now. We need a strong Supreme Court. And so think about what's taking place with this particular nominee and what we need to take place in the next 4 years if we can just get President Trump reelected. Last thing I want you to see on this opening or this frame is that prepping for election day like the idea of blood over the doorpost, the Passover of ancient history. I saw that and it really stirred things within me because, in a real sense, that's what we're up against, I believe. We're up against some very, very, very troubling times. And election night itself could be horribly violent all around the nation, especially if you live in a big city. And one of the things that you have got to start doing right now is asking for God to put his blessing upon your home. Spreading the blood over the doorframe. That was all about the idea of the entrance into this particular place is covered by the blood of the Lamb. And what does the blood of the Lamb do? The blood of the Lamb is representing the cleansing of sin, the taking away of sin. And so this is a sanctified area, and the death angel was not allowed to go in there. Well, we've moved forward now, and we've got the blood of the Lamb that covers us, but it only covers us if we are individuals who've given our lives to the Lord and are in the process are continuing to pay attention to the standards that he has before us. I'm really, really concerned for some of my Just Be Happy preachers that they have walked out from underneath the blood of the Lamb, that they're no longer covered, 1 John chapter 1, because they have compromised for the sake of ingratiating themselves to the community. If you want to be safe, especially spiritually speaking, you and your family on election night and beyond, you have got to cover yourself with the blood of Jesus. And the only way for you to do that is enter into the covenant with him by being buried in baptism, where you meet the blood, and rising to walk in newness of life. Have you done that? I'd love to send you a little booklet, free. It's an email thing. All I got to do is hit a few keys and boom, it can be to you on the subject matter of salvation. Can I do that for you tonight? Would you allow me to send you a little free booklet, please? I wanted to also, because last week I kind of went around this, we've been talking about the church is soft, and I decided I really need to get back to this theme, and it ties in really well actually with this Amy Barrett thing that's going on. But lesson number 2 with this idea of the church is soft. You might recall I went through the book of Revelation chapters 2 and 3, and I looked at all the 7 churches of Asia, and I tried to pick out a series of things that they all had in common. Well, my father recently taught us a series on this very subject, the 7 churches of Asia, at the little group that met at my home. And one of the things he emphasized in every lesson was that there are these words about I know your works, or I know where you are. I know. These 2 words, I know. And in that, I find a common thread with all 7 churches, whether they were righteous totally, we had 2 of those, or the other 5 that had to have rebuke. All of them get this phraseology. Ephesus, I know your works. Smyrna, I know your tribulation. Pergamum, I know where you dwell. Thyatira, I know your works. Sardis, I know your works. Philadelphia, I know your works. Laodicea, I know your works. I know. Revelation chapter 2, verse 18 at the bottom of the screen. And to the angel of the church in Thyatira write the words of the Son of God, who has eyes like a flame of fire. Jesus has eyes. He is aware. He looks down. He knows. There is no amount of darkness that can hide you from him. There is no secluded place that you can walk to that you're going to get away from him. He knows. And so as I lay this on your heart this evening, I want to ask you, are you working feverishly to be part of the remnant? And by the way, you don't even have to answer that question publicly. He knows. He's there. He already gets it. He recognizes the trends of your family. He understands, dads, that you are really, it's awkward for you to have a family devotional. He recognizes that. He recognizes that, sometimes on Sunday mornings, it's just easier to sleep in than it is to go to church. He recognizes that. He recognizes that some of you are already intending to vote for a Biden ticket that is going to have blood all over its hands because you just feel like that would be the easiest thing for you to go as far as keeping some of your liberal values alive. He's already there. He knows that. God knows. The Lord knows. My question is, what does he know about you? The remnant is always much smaller than people expect. And because it's always much smaller than people expect, it's very important that we know what he knows. And it's not a big, crazy, hairy equation here. How do I figure out what Jesus knows? You ready for the big answer? All of it. He knows. There's nothing that's hidden. So I need you to go through. I need you to do inventory of your life. And I need to ask you to ask yourself the question, since he knows everything, what does he know about me? Where are my priorities, and are they where they need to be? Well, that leads me up to this little advertisement, and I'm not going to really talk about it too much. I want to tell you something exciting news that has happened to me. You can look at that and do whatever you want with it. But I just got off the phone just a few hours ago with a good friend in Southern Illinois, and he was talking about plans for a revival that's upcoming. In November, I'm going to get to speak at 3 revivals in Southern Illinois. I'm so proud of my brothers and sisters in Illinois that have the courage to actually step up and do this, and I just can't hardly wait. Bone Gap, Dietrich, and Newton, and it's going to be a wonderful triad. And I'm hoping to add actually a fourth one to that. So here's an advertisement, by the way. As I do the fourth one, I am hoping that I will be able, because I end it on Sunday morning, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get a Sunday night through Wednesday night there as well. So look at the schedule and ask me if you're interested in having another revival. But here's my point for telling you all of that, is that I think that we are on the verge of something huge, massive. It could be massive destruction, but it could be massive healing as well. And I'm thinking about talking in these 3 revivals. I'm thinking about, I'm not saying I'm going to do this yet, but this is where my mind is going as I've been praying about it. I think that I'm going to talk about America's remnant revival. How that America has a remnant. As I was talking to my buddy Dale, he was talking about how the numbers have dwindled because of COVID-19 and how blue that makes him, etc. And I said, Dale, I don't think most of them are coming back. I think most of the folks who are showing up now are the ones who are part of the remnant, in that they were the ones who were always making the effort in the first place. We had a bunch of folks on the peripheral. We had a bunch of folks who were just playing church. They were just showing up to, cleanse their conscience or make grandma happy or whatever. We had a bunch of those folks. And what God did with COVID-19 is he really weeded out those who were playing church. And what I think is going to happen, regardless of who gets elected in November, is we're going to have the potential for massive revival. It could be revival because of all the persecution that's coming down on the church. We may quickly be running right into the idea of having an underground church. That could easily take place in short order, especially if Biden gets elected. But if that does, I think it's going to further sort out those who are playing church and those who really want to be here and are willing to sacrifice for their convictions. So I'm really thankful for those 3 revivals, but I want to ask you, can I come to your car? I'm not afraid of this COVID-19 thing. I'm ready to come right now, and I'll tell you what I need from you. It's really, really simple. I don't care how much you pay me to do the job. I really don't. What I do ask of you is that you put me in a motel. I'll tell you why. I'm getting older. I used to be able to sleep on the floor and anywhere they put me, but I'm getting older, and so I kind of need my rest in between lessons. But I also have a pretty productive online ministry. And so if I'm in a motel room where I got good internet and I can have my private time, I can continue to have my online ministry while we continue to do the revival things of an evening or whenever I have these particular meetings going on. And so you pay me what you want. I don't care. But if you can put me in a motel room, that's the one thing I really would ask of you. Can you do that for me? Then I'm thrilled. Let me come. I'm ready. Dale said, hey, let's talk about end times things. And I'm thinking about doing that. As we talk about America's remnant revival, I'm thinking about starting off, because I'm going to be at one of the churches in Southern Illinois, one of the oldest churches in Southern Illinois. I'm going to be there. And I'm thinking about starting off by talking about, in this triad of revivals, talking about where we came from and the importance for us to recognize our roots. And then in the second revival, I'm thinking about talking about being responsible for where we are. And then in the third revival, which is where Dale's at, his congregation, I'm thinking about talking about where we're going. And talking about the throne room of heaven and all the things that are exciting about our future, etc. And if I can get us a fourth revival backed up against that third one, I'm thinking about talking about how to get there. It could be a wonderful opportunity. And I would love, can I come to your congregation and preach some of these lessons? I would love to be there. Like I said, this COVID-19, I'm not afraid of it. So you sign me up and I'd love to come. Can I come? I'd love it. All right, what else we got? You already saw that. But as we shut this down, remember to keep your eyes on the skies. There are many who believe that the church will be taken out of here before the things hit the fan. Maybe so, hope it's so, pray for it to be so, wonderful if it was so. But you can't count on that, because we don't know that it's so. A lot of preachers out there, they're trying to gain an audience by preaching the assumed certainties of such a thing, but you just can't go there. What you can know is this: your Jesus has your back. And if you will stay with him and you will walk with him through the valley of the shadow of death, for I'll fear no evil. Why? Because thou art with me. That's the way we're going to get through this. If my people are called by my name, we need to get back to that. Regardless of whether or not we have to go through some real horrible tribulation between now and then, the blessed hope is not the timing of the exit. The blessed hope is being in the presence of Jesus, and we need to get back to emphasizing that. So keep your eyes in the skies because he's coming, and I'd love for it to be tonight. Keep your family close, your homemaker vigilant. Keep watching the conditions in your investments in heaven, because everything that's down here, as a good friend of mine used to say back in the day, it's all going to burn. But one day you and I can go to a place that will be eternal, it will be blissful, it will be in the presence of God, our blessed hope, in the presence of Jesus himself. And I want you to be there. Matthew 16:26.